Hello, welcome. I am trying this again, my second live in just a few minutes because the first one was not working like I hoped, but here I am. I hope you're one of a few that might join me to try this out. Doing live videos is very different from pre-recorded things, so bear with me for a few minutes. I've been working on some new software and apparently I have not mastered it because as soon as I started, I realized the screen was small, but for a totally different reason, it's been small before. So I'm not able to do what I wanted to do tonight, which was share a small video clip for what I was going to speak on. But I thought, you know what? It's a challenge and that means you just show up whether or not you got anything and everything kind of falls apart. So I have a cup of tea, decaf. I love cream in my tea. I don't have any honey tonight. And I've got some candles lit. Don't know if you can see them, but this is my little studio. All this amazing workmanship is my husband's. And of course, you can probably see all my books. I'm a book lover. And the top row, maybe one day I'll share some of that stuff, is all the journaling and writing that I've done. So anyway, this is me today. Doing live videos is a whole nother world. I'm so glad there's just a handful of you on for this experience, but I love it. I've been so amazed how much I have enjoyed live videos. I feel like in some ways it's like, especially discovering I can do this on my desktop. I mean, I guess most people start there, but I started doing it just on my cell phone. And so I know there's a way to see chats coming in, and the idea of being able to just sit here and chat with you and invite you basically, to sit at a table and have a cup of tea or coffee with you. In fact, if you're going to hang out for 10 minutes with me, go get a drink. I'll prattle on for a minute, or take me with you when you go get it. But the idea of just being able to like ask a few questions and ask how you're doing and where in the world you are watching this from actually really makes me excited, because I have a hard time doing video. Most of my speaking in the past has always been on stages, and I love facilitating groups. And I've done so many small, I've done workshops and presentations, and I mean, I've spoken in front of thousands of people. And so there's always something to see or and be able to respond. And doing it with a camera, looking at yourself, if you're lucky, is really a very lonely experience, and I don't like it as much as this. So I think once this 10 days challenge is done, I am going to find a way to keep doing this. Maybe not every day, but maybe every other day. And it's definitely stretched me out of my comfort zone, but I'll tell you, some of the best things in my life have happened because I have jumped proverbially into those experiences. I think of this moment. I used to well, not only the first time I went off, I think of it as a coach now, but years ago, I had a dream of, I had watched videos and had pictures hanging on my wall of rock climbers and ice climbers and just all kinds of stuff with mountaineering and skydiving. And well, I guess that was probably the first thing I did. I ended up using high school graduation money that I had saved and was gifted from a few relatives to go skydiving for, what was that, like, I don't know, I was 18 years old. So it wasn't my birthday, but it was like the day after graduation. It was my gift to myself. And that jump out of the plane, you just can't explain that feeling of your stomach in your throat to anyone else until they've done it. And then the thrill that comes from it. I was back up there as fast as I could. I did a couple more jumps for that. They were a road tripping group that came through my town. They were probably only there for like a weekend or something. And years later, I think of what it was the first time I rappelled off of a cliff, or, the thing that comes to mind is me coaching other people over cliffs. And there's one that comes to my mind where I guided in the Sierra Nevada, and maybe some of my old friends one day will see this video and they will think of the prow or the toad in the, oh gosh, I haven't thought of this in a few years, but just beautiful places just outside of Yosemite and the Sierra Nevada with the minarets, probably my favorite mountain range of all time, one of them. I have a few, I guess, technically, but I think it has a special place in my heart. Anyway, so here we are. random story, random reminder to this feeling, but I hope we might get to know each other, a few of you. And just so you know, I have many aspirations for doing this and taking this to a whole nother level for you that might be interested and actually being seen and heard and participating. I'm working on a really amazing community based program right now, and I think I've narrowed it down to a program that I'd like to launch into. And so if you have any interest and you're one of the ones that have been an early subscriber, you might get a special invite to that group and get to be one of the first to test it out and see what we can do to iron out the wrinkles before sharing it with others that might be interested, because there's a lot more than I can ever say about the topic of God and money and learning to build wealth in an experience like this. And I love the dialogue and the energy and the synergy that comes when other people can engage. And so I hope this stumbling on me here randomly on YouTube tonight, or showing up if you've been subscribing, might pique your interest, and that this could be something that you might join me doing a little bit more. So because everything got thrown upside down tonight and everything I planned couldn't be done, I'm going to pivot on a dime and just share a little I'm going to read an excerpt and then dig into it for a moment, just to give you something to think about tonight. Obviously, I'm here. One of my big things, or one of the big things that I want to do to challenge you, is to just really think about how your money, think about God and money together. And so this, I love Paul Zahner Pilzer's stuff. This is a dirty book. I've used it a lot, but he's, and I'm sure we'll dig into some of this stuff, and maybe one day I'll get to interview him. But God Wants You to Be Rich, brilliant book. Highly recommend it. One of the ones that has influenced me. He's authored a whole bunch of stuff and been on a lot of mainstream media through the years. But I love how he opened his book, and it really struck me, because this is part of why I'm doing these videos. This is part of why I'm showing up here. And I think it has to do with this fact that she said, basically, this was a woman he encountered, and she said, all my life I wanted to be rich, but I always believed that I could only succeed in business at the expense of someone else. And as a good Christian, I could never do that. Reading your book and hearing you speak has shown me how wrong I was. And this woman went on to explain that at the age of 55, she had gone into her own business, and she was now making 3 times more money than she had earned after working 32 years working for someone else. Side note, my husband and I, proper English, are huge entrepreneurs. And man, if you get around us for any length of time, we are going to be encouraging you to go in that direction, because the multiplication that can happen when you are the head and not the tail, and the one who is the business owner, is profound. It takes a lot more guts and risks to get out there, but the rewards are huge. But anyway, he goes on to say, how does your new financial success relate to your religious beliefs? He inquired. She said, that's the real tragedy of my life. For 55 years, I believed that God didn't want me to have money, that the economy was always heading downhill, and that the only way to climb the ladder to success was by stepping on someone else. But I was wrong. Now I realize these views were just excuses for my lack of initiative, and that one of the things God wants me to do most as a good Christian is to be rich. That's why he created a world where the more successful I am, the more wealth there is for everyone else to share. And I love how he goes on. This book is really about the why. Why does wealth exist? How do we create wealth? How wealth is spiritual. And, I think he really hit on something that I didn't even realize I had grown up with, a certain paradigm. And that was that most of us come from, and most of the modern day economists and the science of economics and whatever other words you can put in there, really focus on what's kind of known as a zero-sum game, that basically the pie is this big here. This is my example because it's handy, my coaster. And shout out to Arizona. Love Arizona. Lived there for a while. So if a zero sum game, it basically says there's this much wealth in the world and nothing more. And so if I have my little corner of wealth, that leaves this much for everyone else. And if I take more wealth, that means there's less for everyone else to go around. And so it's a limiting factor. But there is another paradigm, and that is that the opposite of a zero sum game. Oh gosh, if you can think of what that phrase is, or the opposite, please throw it in the chat because I'm going to screw it up. It doesn't come to me offhand. But the concept of the opposite is that basically the pie gets bigger as I create wealth. It creates it expands the whole economy. And I'll use an example in my own life. When we started, I don't know, I think our food cart business is about 10 years old right now, or it took a year to get it kind of going. But when we started in Bend, Oregon, we were established at the time, we were on the front wave of food trucks in the Northwest, which had already blown up pretty big at that time, it felt like. But in our little town, super hip tourist town, excuse me, I get talking so fast. I think every video you'll probably ever show up for, I'm going to need to just readjust because I need to breathe deeper. I get so excited. Anyway, embarrassing. So we started in Bend, Oregon. We jumped into it, and there was probably about 12 or 15 established food trucks in our town when we launched in, maybe more, maybe about 20. And we jumped in, and almost nobody would help us get started. Almost no one would give any support or give you any information about the business or the industry or what they'd learned. There was actually two food trucks out of those. I don't know, let's say that was 5 or 10% of the ones that were there, not even, were open, were kind, were encouraging, were welcoming, and even went out of their way to just make us welcome at festivals and events that we did. I remember just being so blown away by their kindness. I remember one couple that were just so kind. They were like second generation with their business. I won't say it, but they have an incredible food. But I remember asking them how they had done their setup, because we had an open air food cart and we needed to operate under a 10 by 10 setup, and we had some banners, but we needed a better system. And so we were kind of expanding and you're always trying to get better in anything in business. And I had seen their banner set up, and I just kind of asked a couple of questions, and they were like, oh yeah, blah, 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 and go to this hardware store and get this. And these are the fittings we did. And it's like $5 or $10. And I was like, oh my gosh, like just the kindness of sharing that information helped launch us forward. And so there's so many times that, or just truly, when I would reflect on it, only those 1 or 2 businesses were that open. But I determined that from that point on, I was gonna return that kindness in any way I could, or pay it forward. I love that phrase. And so every time a new food truck or food cart showed up, I did the same thing. I'd go out of my way to welcome them, say, hey, I've never seen you guys before. Are you new to town? Did you just move here? Did you just get established? And I'd offer connections, support. I'd give them my phone number. And, if you need any insights, you want any beta on some, the good festivals, the bad festivals, good events, I'm happy to share. And the idea was, I didn't want to live in that zero-sum game, that if a new food truck showed up, that it would take away from the business that I could do. And this is how it worked, because the pie got bigger. Our little town blew up. Now, granted, that was part of why we later left. But when it came to the economy, it blew the economy up. And so we ended up, that's my dog making noises over there. Oh gosh, in the 10 or 11 years we were there, I think there was over 300 food trucks that were licensed in our county. There must have been 20 or 25 food cart parks before we left a couple of years ago in the county, and maybe the 2 very close counties near us that the towns were basically in our community. Yeah, Papa, come on, come say hi to everybody. Come on, up here. Yeah. Oh, yeah, this is Jackson. Jackson's a blue heeler. Yes, he is. Yes. and he is a good healer, sometimes too good. Anyway, so we watched as we helped people. Now, many of those people came and went. There were people that, they didn't last. They didn't have what it took to stay in the business, and others that, they had multiplied way faster and better than us, had 2-3 trucks in multiple parks. We decided quickly we didn't want to do, we had opportunities to do a lot of different things, and we tried many different types of business with our food truck. We ended up focusing on high volume events and white glove catering, and had all the business that we needed. Or wanted. We had multiple food carts running and multiple teams at the peak of it. And what was amazing to look back on is realize that as there was more food carts, and the other industry was that breweries came to town. We went from having one of the oldest breweries. What was it? The Deschutes. It's embarrassing because I'm now on live. Deschutes Brewing Company. That doesn't sound right, and I'm just blanking on it, of course. The acronym doesn't sound right, DBC, and I'm Deschutes Brewery. That's what it is. The Deschutes Brewery. Mirapon, one of their favorite beers. Anyway, they had been around long before I'd shown up. I want to say they might have been into it was definitely the early 2000s, maybe even into the 90s. I can't remember. I don't know how long they've actually been there, but I think they were the original one. And then there was a couple smaller. And so when I showed up, there was 3 or 4 breweries in Bend, and it blew up over the next couple of years to the point. There was the Bend Ale Trail, and I want to say there was at least a dozen breweries within the cities, or the couple cities that neighbored Bend, maybe even more now. There were cider companies, and you name it. It kind of became the underground thing. But because that blew up, so did the food cart scene. And so what happened was, the more food carts that were established, the more people came to our town to enjoy the breweries, enjoy the food trucks. And so what happened was that pie got so much bigger than anyone could have imagined. And if we had tried to elbow people out and keep it all to ourselves, we would have really limited our experience. And so my challenge to you today is, when it comes to the spiritual aspect of money, is that as I began to look for spiritual principles and what I could find that God said about money in the Bible, as opposed to what other Christians said about money or what other people said about money, and really going to the source, I discovered things like these concepts of going from a zero, which I don't know which direction to go, left to right. So we're going to go that zero-sum game to the pie getting larger, and whatever. If you know what that economic model is or concept, throw that in, because I can't remember. Anyway, and I guess along with this, and this is what this author points out brilliantly, is that, the point is not to get rich. Living with comfort and having your necessities taken care of takes off a huge amount of stress, and enjoying even the luxuries of life is a wonderful thing. But the point of wealth is not to just live and hoard it. It's money. Money is like a free-flowing river. The more that you give away, the more that will come to you. And the less attached you are to it, the more it will flow through your hands, and people will be drawn to you. And that's why you find, it's not about the amount of money you have. God, it says he looks on the heart. And so I know people that are wealthy, that are more stingy and more greedy and more focused on money than there are people that are poor that I know. And then there's people that are poor. It doesn't really matter how much money you have. The more money you have, the more it accents your character. And I think that's the same thing of what we get to see on social media. The more fame you have, the more followers, the more subscribers, the more of a platform you have. Really, it's just a chance for more people to see your character, and the brighter that spotlight, to see the imperfections if they are there. And so those are going to show. And so it's, for me, I've wanted to deal with these issues in private, because I don't want to be somebody showing something, I don't know. I think the Bible, I take it seriously that if you're going to lead and teach or challenge people and encourage them and be in any position that people are are looking to and a model, you have, in a sense, some greater responsibility to those people. You have a greater responsibility. You're not just responsibility to yourself. It's like being a parent, right? You shoulder a lot more. And so, I take it seriously. It's not anything light that I show up in a place like this on video and do this. It's not like I don't have anything else to do or want to do with my time, but I do this. I'm doing this now and launching into this area because I feel that God's drawn me into it and invited, and it's an opportunity to follow. So I am excited to share more things in the day ahead, but this was kind of something that just came to me spontaneously tonight. And something that I just want to challenge you to think about, that this world is not full of limited resources, and we don't have to live with scarcity, because wealth is just constantly being created on totally different levels. And an example of that is just in my lifetime of, if you look at the GDP of nations and I guess they must measure it for the whole world, but there is so much immaterial, the wealth that is just created from the knowledge industry and using the internet. It's not like we've tapped into oil reserves, however you want to say that. We're not cutting down trees and resources that are, the renewable versus non-renewable energy. There's so much more that we have at our disposal. So anyway, that's what I leave you with today. I hope you'll check back. I may or may not schedule a live stream for tomorrow, but I will be on at some point in the day just to finish out this challenge to myself, and actually a challenge from someone else who's in the economic industry that threw the gauntlet down, and here I am. So I hope you got something out of it tonight. I did. It's a learning curve continually doing this, and I hope to just keep getting better. So thank you for your grace and kindness and listening if you did all the way to the end. And if not, no big deal. I'm here, you're there, and maybe we will enjoy another cup of tea together. Good night.